And so yes, we're going to see, we've got drones, we've got land drones in the form of Wing and Coco. And here to discuss it is, of course, Stanley Tang, who is a co-founder of DoorDash and is the head of DoorDash Lab. He'll be joined by Adam Woodworth, who's the CEO of Wing, and Zach Rash, who's the co-founder and CEO of Coco. And here to moderate is our own inimitable Jonah Bliss.
Scoot on down. All right. Everyone have a nice lunch break? So I'm super excited about this panel. I think just an amazing lineup of kind of leaders in this space, and it's almost intimidating to know where to start. So I think let's start with the heavens. And Adam, just give us a little background on Wing.
Cool. Yeah, so I'm Adam Woodworth. I'm the CEO of Wing. And we are a drone delivery company. So we build those planes there. It's not a model, that's the actual plane. Like I think a lot of people think like, oh, these big giant things flying around. But we've been doing this for a while now and have had a great partnership with the folks at DoorDash, bringing goods right from their merchants straight to people's homes. And doing it, in minutes. So I think the cool part about drones is you don't have to deal with traffic. You can fly in a straight line, and you can go like highway speeds straight to where people are and get them stuff quicker than you can get any other way.
And from the heavens to the earth, Zach, give us some Coco context.
Yeah, so I'm the co-founder and CEO of Coco. We make these purpose-built electric autonomous vehicles to move food, groceries, any type of goods, really focusing on very dense urban environments, so places where there's already too many cars on the road, it's hard to find parking, so kind of the most complex urban environments, we deploy these to offer merchants and customers a really efficient way to get goods delivered to their customers.
And so I think, Stanley, I'm hoping if anyone's here, they probably know what DoorDash is. But before we get into sort of the specifics of that, I think you've got some news to share.
Yeah, we have some really exciting news to share at DoorDash. So yesterday we officially announced our partnership with Coco Robotics. We're going to be we're live in LA, but we're also going to be bringing it to Chicago and Helsinki in Europe as well. So this is really part of a global partnership that we're working with Coco to bring sidewalk robots and robot deliveries to DoorDash. And we're really excited about the partnership with Coco and hope to see robots delivered.
I think we're going to see some robots delivered. I think that gets a round of applause. And so that's, I think, a good segue because you're a co-founder of DoorDash, but you also lead DoorDash Labs. And so speak a little bit about what's DoorDash Labs?
Yeah, so DoorDash Labs, we're the team that's building the future of delivery. So we are incubating new ideas, incorporating new technologies, new modalities onto DoorDash to figure out what's the most efficient way to deliver things to our customers. I think we're, for me, the question that's always been on my mind is, in a world of AI and autonomy, if your goal is to just deliver 2 chicken sandwiches around, why do you always need a 2-ton vehicle? Right, so for us, it's really about exploring what are some of these new technologies, new modalities, and we're particularly excited about autonomy, drones, robotics, AI, and at DoorDash, we not only want to be ready for the world, for this world, but we want to be the ones leading the change to make this world happen, and that's obviously through a lot of the work we, through a lot of the partnership with Coco, and of course with Wing as well. So for us, the way we see DoorDash Labs is really becoming that platform for all things autonomy, and that's what we're really excited about.
Yeah. So both these companies have obviously been delivering for a couple years now. I'm curious, Adam, you guys are live in Australia, you're live in different markets in the US. What have you learned from actually moving things through the sky?
Yeah, I think Stanley brought up a great point of if the task is go deliver a couple of chicken sandwiches, sort of what is the right sized vehicle to go do that, and what are the sort of interesting use cases that come out when you offer a new mode of delivery. So we've been live with DoorDash for just about 2 years now in Australia, and just about 6-9 months or so in the U.S. And I think that it's the classic example of sort of a new technology unlocking new use cases. So one of the I think most surprising things to us when we started operating in Australia is the vast majority of the orders were like drinks, so coffee, smoothies, sort of like prepared beverages, and it was a bit of a head scratcher at the start of like, okay, why is this the thing that people are sort of sort of migrating to, and it's because it can get delivered at the exact same quality that it came out of the merchant at. And I think that that's one of those really interesting things where it's like, okay, if you can go to truly like 5-15 minute type of deliveries, what types of items were sort of, have, quality that changes over time, ice cream, things like that. And so it was one of those things where when we went into the market, we had a whole bunch of expectations around what people would want to order, and we actually offered the service. The customer told us what they wanted to order, and it was a sort of cool, surprising change.
So you're saying no spilled coffees?
Yeah. No spilled coffees. So we actually have a bunch of like clear packages that we fly around, because people ask us all the time of like, well, the drone's going to be moving around. What if it spills? What if the eggs break and stuff? And we can drop off the coffee right to your front yard without spilling a drop.
You don't want to break eggs when they're like $10 an egg.
Yeah, it's precious cargo.
So that's what you guys have learned. I could say similarly, like Coco, you've been in LA for 5 or so years now, but you've just started moving into new markets, Chicago, Helsinki, sort of different weather patterns out there. Like it can do the beach, but what have you learned trying to operate in colder climates?
Yeah, we were very spoiled in Los Angeles. This is about as hot as it gets here, and obviously very little rain and no snow. So a lot of learnings from these other markets. We've done over 100,000 orders on the DoorDash platform now, so we've learned a ton from some of these merchants. We have some merchants that have done tens of thousands of orders already on the DoorDash platform using Coco. So that's been really cool. I think some of the most interesting learnings. One of the big question marks that we had and DoorDash had too is how does this actually interact with the merchants? Because the merchants have a whole new workflow now. They need to go outside. They need to put the food in the robot. It doesn't have a driver coming in to grab the food. And so what does that workflow look like? And we've been surprised by a couple restaurants, particularly ones that are really high volume. They actually have created new workflows to work with the robots. So we have this brand called Main Chick Hot Chicken that we work with, that we've been working with for a long time. They operate out of a ghost kitchen in West LA, and we created for them kind of a taxi line of robots. So all of the food orders that would come in, and they do a lot of volume, the food orders would come in, and they would purposefully prep all of the robot orders as fast as possible, and then immediately do first order ready, first order into a robot, so it gets dispatched immediately. And when you have, in the middle of a city where it's hard to find parking and it's really congested, that can shave off, 10 to 15 minutes on the customer's delivery time. Because you have that taxi line of robots. So we ran a bunch of cool experiments with them, and we were saving the kind of customer 10 to 15 minutes on average from their delivery times through that. So that was cool. And then, Chicago and Helsinki, very different conditions. We had to learn how to do snow tires properly, of course. But it's also, those markets are really important for us because we want to make sure we're adding value in markets where you have this extreme weather, because if it's freezing cold in Chicago, it might be harder to get bike couriers on the road and doing deliveries if it's miserable outside. But at the same time, nobody wants to leave their house, so DoorDash goes crazy on those days. And so being able to offer a very reliable service that can complement all the Dashers, I think, is really important in those sort of markets.
So both your companies have obviously been operating in this space for a couple of years. I feel like at the same time, DoorDash Labs, you guys had your kind of announcement about the labs existing a couple of years ago, but you've been almost purposefully quiet, and other competitors in the space have been making noise. Why is this the moment to kind of put a foot forward?
Yeah, I think it's because I feel like this is really the moment where we're finally at a point where autonomy and drones and all these interesting technologies is coming to fruition, It's actually live. It's real. Like we're actually doing robot, like Zach said, we've done 100,000 robot deliveries already. We've done tens of thousands with Wing. We're in Australia. We're in Texas. We're in Virginia. Like this is not a demo or a research project or science fiction at this moment. I think we're at a point where this is finally starting to be real. It's happening right now, and we think this is really why the moment is right for us to actually announce and talk more about DoorDash Labs. Because our role at DoorDash Labs, the way we see it is we want to be the platform for all things autonomous. And as you've heard from Adam and Zach, it's not as simple as just a robot shows up, you plug it into our delivery network, and everything magically works. The delivery is complicated. It's not as, it's not like if it was only as easy as picking up and dropping off passengers. Like packages don't have feet, right? They can't walk to a robot, right? So just thinking through what are the building blocks we have to create in order to support autonomy and drones. So everything that ranges from the ordering experience is going to be a little bit different. Like how do you filter out what the right orders are for robots? Like if you're doing drone delivery, you have to like pick out where the landing site, where's your backyard or front yard. Dispatching is really different. Like how do you figure out what the right mode to dispatch? How do you think through, as Zach alluded, the merchant integration? Right? Like it's not a human showing up to pick up your food. It's a robot. How does that work? Creating new workflows around it. There's a lot of like real estate changes you have to make. So it's really delivery is such a complex, multi-dimensional, multifaceted problem, and especially once you incorporate robotics into it. So I think the platforms that are going to succeed are the ones that know how to handle this complexity, and that's really what we built at DoorDash Labs is that platform to support all things autonomy, and we've done it, and we've done it with real delivery. We've done it with, and obviously a lot of it's through the partnership we've done with Wing and Coco.
So it sounds like you're sort of waiting for the technology to mature to be like a little less sci-fi pilot, a little more ready for prime time. Were you kind of concurrently evolving DoorDash as a product to support that as a platform? Like, are there changes and updates to how the product works that you can sort of talk through?
Yeah, I think we alluded to some of these changes, right? I think the key is really about how do you, there's two parts. How do you figure out what the right use case is? It's like delivery is such a complicated problem. Like we do billions of orders a year. There are no two deliveries that are the same. Like even for the same customer, like the delivery you ordered for DoorDash today is going to be a little bit different from tomorrow. Okay, there's different kitchen condition, like how busy the kitchens are. It depends on like traffic, weather. Is it a short distance delivery, long distance? What kind of restaurant is it? What kind of cuisine? There's so many variables that goes into making deliveries happen, and you're dealing with something that's in the physical world. So the key is really understanding how do you fit the product, the technology to the right use case, right? Versus trying to go for versus just treating it like any other, like a Dasher or any other modality. So like Wing, for example, like Adam said, it's really good at these, like you want coffee to show up in 5 minutes. Maybe it's a 10-mile distance delivery, or it's an area that has not good road infrastructure, or you want to bypass traffic. Wing fits really well for that. If you're dealing with like a urban, complex environment, campuses, things like that, or shorter distances, like Coco fits really well for that. Right? And of course, you're always going to have dashers. Like if you're navigating like stairs or something, right? Or a complex, or a complicated apartment complex, you're always going to need dashers too. So it's really about figuring out what the right use cases are, and creating kind of this multimodal network, and that's really what we've been thinking of, and that's what makes this problem so interesting as well.
Yeah. Adam, I'm curious, over the years, how has the hardware evolved to sort of incorporate learnings, incorporate merchant and consumer feedback?
Yeah, I think Stanley's points around sort of like the complexity of the business are what drive you towards like the simplicity of the solution, or like you don't want complexity in all the other different pieces that are add to a sort of already complicated operation. For us, it was that same sort of like finding the right use case, finding the right piece of the market. Like you go look out on the road, look at the ramp at an airport. Like there's a whole bunch of different airplanes because some are going across the ocean, some are going, across the state. Some are, some trucks are carrying, loads of gravel. Some are carrying, avocados, right? Like you can't, in the physical world, you cannot take a one-size-fits-all approach. And then if you're trying to build a successful business, you have to be focused on what is the right piece that you fit into, that you uniquely differentiate in that space. And for us, it was sort of like going small on the package size because it was something that, was both sort of underserved in the market and also you have to get permission to fly these things, right? Like aviation is fundamentally non-permissive. So like I can't just show up somewhere and be like, I want to fly planes. There's a whole bunch of government steps there. And if you start small, you can bring that airplane into a conference room. You can show people what it looks like. It's made out of foam and little bits of carbon fiber. You can conceptualize that flying over your neighborhood. And if you can show that that works, and you can show that the autonomy works, and you can show that sort of the business works, then you can start to entertain like, okay, what would a slightly bigger one look like? What would one that goes a little bit farther look like? And so I think it's that ability to sort of dig into the problem, find the piece that sort of you fit into, and then be sort of like ruthless on the focus of trying to build to it. And that plane represents like that focus.
I like that. And you're sort of starting in the comfort zone and then sort of expanding as people learn about it. Zach, similar question. I mean, I think in a way the robots are almost unassuming looking, but you guys have sort of evolved the hardware over the years. What's changed?
Yeah, I mean, agree with everything Adam just mentioned. The vehicle started initially, my co-founder and I built it in our living room and just put it out to a restaurant like the next day. So day one of Coco was a really bad robot that was carrying food driven by either me or Brad. And the idea was we didn't want to over-engineer the vehicle. We didn't want to have a $200,000 or $100,000 or $50,000 vehicle just because it makes the economics of what we're doing very difficult. So we wanted to be practical and say, what is the minimum product we need to be successful here and for our merchants to get value out of the product. And then we learned a lot about what we needed to add to that. So this is kind of the second major evolution of the vehicle. Underneath that is probably the 100th revision of hardware. It's all the boring stuff you can't see. The vehicle is very simple by design. But at the end of the day, our job is to tell Stanley we're going to go from A to B exactly a certain time and do that every single time. Nobody's going to use this technology if it makes the food cold or if it's a worse experience for the customer, right? So it's not just about trying to make this more and more affordable. It has to kind of meet or exceed the kind of current quality of service. So we spent a lot of time on that, but the design itself is very simple, but it is very thoughtful to say, how do we fit the most type of orders that move around a city while still being compact enough to fit on a sidewalk and have a really good merchant handoff experience. So in a more suburban market, that might not be as big of a deal where it's easy to park, but in our urban markets, there is no parking space. And so it's very important that this can go on sidewalks and get right up to the door of the restaurant. So it's about human shoulder width, and that was very deliberate. Yet most people say it's larger than they thought before they see it in person, because it was designed to fit 4 grocery bags. You can fit 10 extra large pizzas in it. So it's quite a bit of carrying capacity, which was important for our customer. But yeah, really designed around those shorter distance trips and those kind of most chaotic urban markets.
I think like the point you made at the beginning about starting from a place of focusing on low cost is like one of the most critical decisions anyone can make in hardware development. Once you've built something, very hard to make it cheaper. And starting from a place of like the cost of the system is a driving element of sort of what it ends up looking like is something that like is an easy decision to miss at the beginning, but it can bite you very hard at the end.
You alluded to this a moment ago, but anything flying obviously has a kind of heavy regulatory compliance. For those of you as geeky as me, the FAA has sort of been slowly updating their rules and regulations for drones. Has that made your life easier? Has that made it harder? What's changed?
I mean, I think that's most of what my job is sort of going and building out those frameworks and sort of, advocating for what makes sense so that we can expand at the pace of a business. So I think, like, particularly as Stanley was saying, like, this stuff is real now, right? Like, this isn't like the Jetsons future and like we're all waiting on sort of the hoverpods to show up. These planes are flying around over neighborhoods all around the globe, and you can't, like, that can't be in fits and starts, right? Like, it can't be like, okay, we're gonna go do a pilot in Dallas, and then we wait an indeterminate amount of time before the next piece. Like, you've gotten people excited about that. You've sort of got a partner excited about that. You need to keep that momentum going. And so a lot of what a lot of the work that's been happening on sort of like the regulatory front is how do those rules become predictable and pragmatic, right? Like, aviation is a world built around safety, and that's something that we don't want to compromise. At the same time, recognizing that a 10-pound foam airplane is a lot different than a $500,000-pound airliner. And how do the rules and regulations sort of right-size themselves for the platform in the same way that the platform right-sizes itself for the payload? I'm sure you sort of face sort of similar discussions on the difference between a ground robot in a car and a semi-truck. But for us, it's really about, like, when we first started all of this, it wasn't even clear what the rules were that you needed to follow, right? It's like you're studying for tests, and you don't know if it's like you have to run the mile in gym or like take a biology test at the end of the day. But the change over the last several years is, like, the rules have become clearer, and when you have a clear bar to build to, you can pass that test.
Zach, very different regulatory environment for the sidewalk bots, generally done at the city level. When you guys took these to Europe, did that change? Was it a little bit more government intervention?
Well, we started in Helsinki, Finland, and I don't know if you've been to Helsinki, but the sidewalks there are perfect. They're perfect. The bike lanes are on the sidewalks, so the sidewalks are huge. And pretty much immediately, we actually started working with the EU to help use the data that the vehicles collect to help improve it even further. So they've actually been really collaborative. You do deal with, like, very old rules. To your point, you have rules that were clearly drafted with different purposes, and this is definitely not a car, but it's not necessarily a pedestrian. So how do you define all of that? And so, we work with whatever the appropriate. So we don't have like a federal body that regulates this, and so some states have regulation. We'll work with the state. Some cities, if state doesn't have regulation, we'll work with the cities to adopt some sort of framework. And that's been a really great process. We started in the city of Santa Monica, then did the city of Los Angeles, city of West Hollywood, and then recently Chicago. I think it's just a lot of educating on how the product works, making sure everyone understands it's safe and kind of what the benefit is to allowing this to operate. And I think a lot of people were burned from micromobility rollouts, so a lot of educating of why this won't be the same. But because we had such a good start and a good relationship with the city of Los Angeles, city of Santa Monica, we've been able to take that kind of reference and that sort of credibility to other markets, and I think that's helped speed it up a lot. But yeah, each country is going to be different. Finland had a whole different set of policies. But in general, I think everyone's been really supportive and collaborative on shaping that.
That's great. Stanley, when your partners kind of come up with regulatory questions, concerns, is that something that DoorDash is actively involved in, or is that sort of like hands off, that's your issue? Like, how do you think about regulations?
Yeah, I mean, safety is at the paramount of what we do. Like, we work really closely with our partners to make sure, everything's vetted, everything's safe. I mean, we work with the community. If they need our help on any regulatory bodies we need to meet with, like, we're their partner. And DoorDash is, you're talking about moving things around in the physical world. So safety is absolutely critical. Like, we're never gonna put something out there on the road or in the air that's not safe when it's on our platform. So I think like the way I think about it is, like, we're really here to be the partner for anybody that's working robotics. Like, we have the resources, we have the network, we have the marketplace. Like, let us be your partner. If anyone that's working in autonomy that wants to roll out their products or solutions onto the DoorDash network, like we want to be your first call. And I think that's really the way we see our role in building this future. And likewise, like for the restaurants too, like if you're a restaurant that's trying to adopt these new technologies, that's trying to figure out how to navigate this rapidly changing environment, that wants to use drones, wants to use robots, and don't know where to start with, again, like DoorDash is the perfect partner for you as well. Like we can, so we can sort of be your single point of interface, right, for both the restaurants and the robotics partners as well. And as well as working with cities too. Like we want to work with the cities and make sure what we put out there in the community is safe.
I think it's interesting having both these solutions up here because in a way, at least in my mind, they sort of serve different markets in terms of like what that urban, suburban, exurban space looks like. You're going to be flying over lower density places. These sidewalk bots are great for medium density cities, but in a Hong Kong or Manhattan with elevators and doormen, it's probably still going to be a human courier. I'm also curious, you can provision a machine for sort of base load, but not for peak load because that's too expensive. So like, how does DoorDash think about like what's the job for a robot partner? What's the job for a human courier?
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's what I alluded to earlier when I meant by we're the platform for all of things autonomy. What I also mean by that is like, this is also going to be a multimodal future. And what I mean by that is, it's about picking the best delivery method for each order. There are going to be orders that are good for drones. There are going to be orders that are good for robots. There are going to be orders that are still good for dashers, and we still need dashers. And the way I really see this is this is not a zero-sum game. Right? Like autonomy is going to be complementary to our dasher fleets. Like if anything, I think with autonomy, you're going to actually see an increase in demand. Right? You're actually going to see it's going to actually require. We're going to actually require more dashes. We're going to need more drones. We're going to need more sidewalk robots, et cetera. So it's really about we see this as something that can grow the pie. I mean, it's just like how when ATM machines first came out, like people thought, they're going to be less demand for bank tellers. Turns out there's actually more bank tellers than ever before. Likewise here, and I think that is really the future we're investing at DoorDash is building that multimodal network, and we think and DoorDash is, I think, is really the best position to help make that happen.
Zach, Adam, is that sort of, you guys see each other as complements more than competitors?
Yeah, I mean, I think the multimodal piece is the truth, right? Like it is, there's always going to be sort of like differences in the trip, the order, the package, the customer that necessitate a sort of variety of solutions. And there are going to be places that robots can go that planes can't. There's going to be places planes can go that robots can't. There's going to be like submarines and stuff. I don't know. Like it's like I think that the future is that space that is sort of networked across a whole bunch of different delivery solutions. And so yeah, I say the same thing sort of within our own industry of like it's the classic like rising tides raises all the ships type of thing of like. A point I think we all sort of touched on a little bit was like the education and sort of like customer adoption and acceptance piece. Like I usually ask a room like, how many people remember the first time you flew on an airplane? Some hands. How many people remember the first time you drove in a car? It's like, okay, well, much fewer hands. Like aviation is like pretty rare, right? And you're bringing this into someone's backyard. In the same way of like how many people have like interacted with a robot on a day-to-day, I don't know, like that driving up to your house is a unique experience. There's a very cool element of that. There's also a like, we got to get people to understand what this is. And I think it's a holistic approach of like this next generation of autonomy and automation and robotics. Like how do you bring that to a customer? How do you bring that to a community in a way that people inherently accept it?
Yeah. So I think, you refer to DoorDash as a platform. To me, it feels like you're almost building an API for moving things in the physical world. What's, with 40 seconds left, like give us, what's the future vision for it? Where are we going from here?
Yeah, I think API for the physical, that's the way you think about it. It's like we're the platform, we're creating the building blocks so that any robotics company out there that wants to get their solutions out or get and distribute, you just work with DoorDash. It's a one-time integration, and all of a sudden you've unlocked millions of customers overnight, hundreds of thousands of restaurants that we already have a relationship with. We already know how to integrate, work with them. Like, that's really the power of the DoorDash Autonomy platform, and likewise for the restaurants. It's one integration, one single point of interface, and all of a sudden you have unlocked a drone, you've unlocked a robot, and I think that is really the unique role DoorDash gets to play, and that's kind of what I kind of meant by we're building kind of it's like the physical API, but when it comes to delivery, but for the real world, and we love to make that happen. DoorDash Labs is open for business.
Very cool. Thank you, guys.